Today's show is sponsored by Lear Capital, the precious metals leader since 1997 and only company I trust and recommend to my family, friends, and viewers. Visit LearAlex.com.
Ready to break the narrative? Get the real story with no filters and no apologies. Cut through the noise with real conversation, real conviction, and real news. It's time for Truth Without Spin. It's the Alex Marlow Show.
Absolutely one of the biggest news weeks of the year here, and I'm thrilled to be able to cover so much of it with you in a super busy weekend. And before we get into the stuff that went down, I'll tell you what is ahead on the show. I'm headed to Washington, D.C. right after I get done broadcasting. Today, I will be present in Washington for the State of the Union. I'll be doing all sorts of stuff, a couple of White House items, and I'll be doing some TV, all that stuff, and doing some exclusive interviews I'll bring to the show as well. But pay close attention to this space. I will not be live on the air tomorrow because I'm doing something very special that I cannot announce yet. But should it happen, and it should, it's on the schedule, then I think it's going to make some news. I think you might see yours truly popping up in the news tomorrow. I'm hoping, God willing. So we will see a lot to come in the State of the Union week. And the president has a lot to tout, a lot of positive stuff. And a couple things got added over the weekend. One that does not seem positive, but trust me, it is. And we'll be spending a lot of time on the show talking about this. But the cartel leader, Nemesio El Mencho Oseguera Cervantes, one of the top terrorists on the planet and the top terrorist in Mexico, is dead. He is among 4 people who were killed in a shootout that took place over the weekend. You guys might recall when Trump finally got around to designating some of these Mexican cartels terrorist organizations, which we'd been calling for Breitbart News from, I think, before he even won. But the Cartel Jalisco Nuevo Generacion, the Cartel Jalisco New Generation, as it is anglicized. It's one of several cartels that have been designated foreign terror organizations by the U.S. government. And this was the leader. So one of the most violent people in all of Mexico, which is a violent country at this time. It is often run by the cartels. He had a $10 million bounty on his head, and he's dead now. So the effort apparently was to actually capture him, which would have been kind of cool as well, because we've been in a capturing kind of mode here in the United States lately. This year, we got some high profile ones we've been rounding up. But this was a operation that we broke at Breitbart News, was trained. The people who pulled it off in Mexico were trained by U.S. Navy SEALs. They trained the Mexican military who killed the terrorist leader El Mencho, which is pretty amazing. So this is all part of Donald Trump's efforts to try to get the Mexican government to start taking the cartels seriously. Mexico has basically turned into a failed narco state. We know this at Breitbart News because we have a initiative called the Cartel Chronicles, which is the most important things, among the most important things we do. We've been doing it for about 10, 12 years or so, long before Trump came down that escalator, warning that the cartels are causing massive humanitarian crises in Mexico. And they're not just cooperating with the Chinese to try to import fentanyl in the United States in China's effort to murder Americans via fentanyl. Of course, they're part of that. Of course, they're part of human smuggling, drug smuggling, weapon smuggling, all that stuff that they do. But the governments, particularly in a lot of different states, and some of them you'll hear mentioned on the show throughout the day, a lot of them have just become basically narco states where the cartels, any government that operates is really doing so because they have the permission at the behest of the cartels themselves. They're really in the power position, not the government. And Trump has been trying to compel Claudia Sheinbaum, the far left Marxist president of Mexico, to say that, look, I know that you're kind of cool with it, but we're not. And it's time for you to start dealing with it. And this is a big moment for her because I think that she was very much a status quo establishment type figure. And now she's done something which is sort of crossing a Rubicon, which is that she has, I guess, at least granted permission for one of the most high profile cartel terrorist to get taken out. So the reaction to it from the cartel has been what you've probably seen in the press, and it's been pretty devastating in a lot of ways. Gunmen who were terrorists deploying road spikes, carjacking vehicles, setting fire to buildings. A lot of cities were brought to complete standstills. I've got lots of friends and acquaintances who are in Mexico and just seeing people's raw social media feeds, people trapped in hotels, people not able to hit the road, people sleeping in, all sorts of strange circumstances because they can't move around. All this took place starting in the border state of Tamaulipas, as well as other states like Guanajuato and eventually Michoacan, Jalisco, as well as Nayarit and Colima. Forgive any mispronunciations, but so many cities and areas within Mexico locked down. And all of it is because these cartels are hyper violent and they did not want to see their leader taken out. So understand that there's a military operation by people trained by U.S. Navy SEALs. Seems to be a success for the most part. Maybe a capture would have, I guess, been preferable. But I think that taking out one of the baddest guys in the world, another W. And then it was the cartels who overreacted and tried to engage in terrorism afterwards. And this is emotional blackmail. So what cartels do is they basically, it's a threat. This is what terrorism is. It's a threat that if you don't conform to our will, if you don't comply with what we want, if you don't allow us to do what we want to do, then we will just be violent against you without sort of any regulation or moderation whatsoever. So this is exactly what compelled Trump to name them terrorist organizations, because this is not just simple drug smuggling, which is not good anyway. But this is all about the cartels trying to hold people in the world emotionally hostage by saying, if you don't submit to our will, then we are going to commit acts of extreme violence. And that's exactly what we saw. So cartels setting up blockades. You saw all these buildings set ablaze. And the U.S. Department of State was forced to issue travel warnings. U.S. citizens in Mexico are in danger at the moment. So it shouldn't be like this. But the reason why is because Mexico in particular, but past American administrations, both Republican and Democrat, but especially Democrat, have been completely tolerant of this. And so when Peter Schweitzer writes about how this country, the government of Mexico, is trying to subvert the American public, subvert our country, it's not just a matter of people are trying to come here for a better life, that there is a movement to try to subvert America and to try to really reconquista parts of America's Southwest and bring it back into Mexico. This is what Mexico's like. So pretty amazing stuff. The developments will be fast and furious, I think, as we see what happens next and see what good can be done. Hopefully more good than bad here going forward. Randy Clark will join me later in the show from our Cartel Chronicles Bureau, who's got over 30 years of law enforcement experience, really special guy who works for me at Breitbart News. We'll talk to him in the C block of the show. So a pretty good but very dramatic news with a lot of nuance, obviously, and we pray for everyone's safety who is here. We pray for the people of Mexico, the good and decent people. You should not have to live in a narco state that has failed simply because you have weak leaders and a lot of people who are taking payouts. All right, let's talk something positive. Let's talk the U.S. hockey team. I got to tell you, I was at a speech yesterday, and I was at a speech all weekend in beautiful Orange County, California, and I got all the kids up early, and we watched the U.S. hockey game, and it was the gold medal game, and it was amazing stuff. Not just because the U.S. won the gold, which is I'm fine with. You guys know I don't really care for the Olympics very much. In fact, I'm kind of sad that the Olympics, I guess, sort of got redeemed by the U.S. hockey glory. But I will say it was really cool to see. This was the most patriotic team, I think, of all the teams. And they took out Canada. Nothing better than beating Canada in overtime. And the guy who got the game-winning goal, you've all seen this clip by now, Jack Hughes, 24-year-old. Let's play cut 3, please, guys.
This is all about our country right now. I love the USA. I love my teammates. It's unbelievable. The USA Hockey Brotherhood is so strong. And we had so much support from ex-players. I'm so proud to be American today. That's American hockey right there. That's a great Canadian team, but we're USA. We're so proud to be Americans. Tonight was all for the country.
Can you believe that? None of this. It's so tough to be American right now. It's really mixed bag right now. I want to use my platform to talk about the LGBTs. No, it's I love my country. I love America. This is a victory for America. I'm proud to be American. And so classy. What's unbelievable about this game is he lost 2 teeth in the game. A high sticking, took a hockey stick to the face, has teeth ripped out of his head. And he comes back and he scores a game-winning goal. His brother is also on the team. This is the type of stuff that inspires you about sports, is the grit, is the determination, patriotism, trying to find a common cause with your fellow compatriots to just fight for glory and fight for country and not for money. Amazing stuff. Congratulations to Jack Hughes and the U.S. hockey team. I'm sad you guys redeemed the whole Olympics, but an amazing moment and a stark contrast to a lot of the hate and anger that we see going on in our country right now. We'll be right back. A lot more to come on The Marlow Show. If you're like me and are tired of random stuff getting thrown into your supplements, like artificial colors and sugars, you probably would love to know more about phytonutrition. Phytonutrients are the naturally occurring plant nutrients found in whole foods that give them their color, taste, and smell. And the presence of these three things is a surefire sign you're getting real phytonutrients. Balance of Nature's whole health system supplements are a value bundle that includes their fruits and veggies and fiber and spice supplements, which gives you 47 ingredients of fruits, vegetables, spices, and fibers, and all of the naturally occurring phytonutrients that come with them every single day. Balance of Nature takes produce through a specialized vacuum cold process that stabilizes the ingredients. They're then powdered and packaged with no binders, fillers, or flow agents. So whether you've been on the fence for a long time or it's your first time you're hearing about them, I recommend them to you. Go to balanceofnature.com and order the whole health system supplements as a preferred customer today. Go to balanceofnature.com. All right, we're back. It's really interesting talking about the success of the U.S. hockey team, and I think both U.S. hockey teams won the gold, which is pretty cool. But it didn't stop NBC from putting in a big graphic that they made wrapping up the Olympics this year with a picture of Eileen Gu in the middle holding up one of her medals. The CCP turncoat. Born in America, raised in America, benefits from America, lives in America, went to Stanford, competes for the Communist Party of China, and is still featured in NBC's coverage. Guys, why I wrote Breaking the News? One of the biggest parts of Breaking the News, my first book, was pointing out that the whole purpose of NBC, their news division and their sports division, their entertainment division, it's all to stay in the favor of China because NBC Comcast Universal is a Chinese entity. It's a Chinese enterprise. And in many ways, because they need that Chinese cash. So they've shareholders all over the world, whatever. They've got executives in America. But their North Star is, can you keep the CCP happy so they can continue to do business in China? Once you understand that, you understand a lot of what NBC does in terms of their news coverage, promoting traitorous CCP agents. All right. So that was fun. That was a fun way to wrap up the sporting events, though. Again, does this mean people have to care about the Olympics again? It's like, am I back? I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think of Kash Patel, who is celebrating with the USA hockey team? I gotta say that if this was, Christopher Wray celebrating with the U.S. hockey team, we'd be pretty mad. I gotta admit. So I'm not saying that I care that much. I really don't, but not sure. I mean, I would like to see some arrests coming for some bad guys before I see the popping of the beers with the hockey team. But hey, what do I know? I've never run the FBI. All right. The other big news item of the day was kind of a stunner, which was Gavin Newsom said maybe the dumbest thing Gavin Newsom has ever said, which is pretty tough. We've got a cut here of this. This is cut 13, please.
I'm not trying to impress you. I'm just trying to impress upon you. I'm like you. I'm no better than you. I'm a 960 SAT guy. and I'm not trying to offend anyone, trying to act all there if you got 940. But literally a 960 SAT guy. I cannot, you've never seen me read a speech because I cannot read a speech. Maybe the wrong business to be in.
What's striking about this is that he's speaking to an all-black audience in Georgia, and he's intentionally slowing down his speech, and he's bragging about being stupid, and he says, I am like you. So he's basically saying that his all-black audience is stupid, which is among the more racist things I think I've ever heard. And I don't know what his defense would be. He'll never defend himself. He'll never be at least not for a while. He'll have to defend this maybe eventually. But the guy running for president, he's now promoting a book. He's in Georgia speaking to black people and saying, I'm really stupid. I can't read just like all of you. This is the equivalent of this is equivalent of Obama being called a clean, articulate black when Joe Biden said poor kids are just as dumb as white kids. This is just you have that one, Sean. Roll it when you can. This is exactly the type of stuff that follows you around forever.
Just as talented as white kids.
Or should I
you cannot do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. Wealthy kids, black kids.
So here's what I'm trying to say here with Newsom is that him bragging about being a stupid person, and when the Democrats continue to elevate people who do not have clear command of the facts, is a huge opportunity for us. But it's also, we need to make sure that we remember, we have a memory so that we keep making them answer for these points, because he doesn't have a record. And now he's trying to just relate to people by being dumb. And that's not impressive. I don't really want our leaders to not be able to read. I don't think that's a positive. So if you want to be populist, I don't think stupid makes you populist. It's just the same way he lies about being a poor kid when he was obviously a rich kid. His background, not only was his dad an attorney for Getty Oil, but his best friend was a heir to the Getty, a whole operation. And that's who he started his wine business with. And now he's out there making overtly racist comments. And this is the whole thing, the phenomenon that we've been witnessing with those Munich Security Conference clips of all these Democrats. AOC's been on defensive because the donors are obviously not happy with her. Let's play cut 7, please.
If you think that I don't understand foreign policy because out of hours of discourse about international affairs, I pause to think about one of the most sensitive geopolitical issues that currently exist on Earth, I'm afraid the issue is not my understanding, but rather the problem is perhaps you've gotten adjusted to a president that never thinks before he speaks.
I know she's sick, but she's also sad, and she's in big trouble because she does not have command of the facts. We'll be right back on the Marlow Show. Racist, Gavin Newsom, who is talking super slow to black people and saying that he's got a low SAT score like they do, or the guy who screamed the N-word at the BAFTAs over the weekend. Yes, that did happen. The BAFTAs is the British equivalent to the Oscars, and with Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo on stage, someone just blurted out the N-word. We were told it was a Tourette's activist, but I just feel like if I was an ultimate troll, I would just declare myself a Tourette's activist, and then I would just run around screaming swear words. So needless to say, because of the Federal Communications Committee, we will not be playing that audio on the show today. I didn't even suggest it. I don't want to give people any heart attacks, but it is pretty remarkable that we have that going on. And I don't know. I still think Newsom is more racist. Even Nicki Minaj was dunking on him. She's like a political savant now. She was saying his way of bonding with black people is to tell them how stupid he is and that he can't read. That's so right. I'm becoming a Nicki Minaj fan. It's pretty noteworthy because I've been pointing out how dumb a lot of the Democrats are behaving. I'm not saying they're all dumb, but I'm saying that the standard is so low, and we're going to see whether or not people who are in the liberal wing, not the leftist wing of the Democrat Party, are going to try to point some of this out. Fareed Zakaria, who is a dishonest guy, but is not the most left-wing guy in the media class, he had a clip on CNN that I barely could believe this actually occurred. Can we play cut 1, please, guys?
New York is really a prime example of a problem Democrats seem unwilling to confront. Blue cities are out of control, promising more, spending more, delivering less, and pushing off the fiscal problems to some future day. What is the theory of good government here? If the answer is keep adding programs, the city will keep producing unaffordability, because unaffordability is what happens when government becomes a machine that grows faster than the society it governs.
That's exactly right. And so he's calling out basically NGO fraud in California, where our homelessness went up 950. Our budget for homelessness went up about $1 billion, and yet homelessness nearly doubled during that time. And we have the worst homelessness in the country. We get the highest gas prices. The list goes on. The worst affordability. bad crime, and people can't wait to leave, even though it's supposed to be the Democrat utopia. So how long are people going to be in denial of this fact that Newsom can't govern? And maybe it's because he's low IQ and stupid. All right, we're going to change gears back to what happened in Mexico over the weekend. Randy Clark is with me. He is from our Cartel Chronicles initiative at Breitbart News, which is one of the most important things we do. He's got about 3 decades in law enforcement experience prior to him joining us in the media space. Randy, so I set up kind of the basics of what happened in the top of the show in the first segment today over the weekend. And so first of all, I want to get a sense of, do we consider this a good thing overall? Clearly, there's terrorism that took place afterwards, but El Mencho, one of the worst guys, and I want you to contextualize that, in all of really narco terrorism in the world, and he's gone now. So is this a positive, or what are we to make of all of this?
Well, it's absolutely a positive, especially when you go back and you look at what we've seen out of Mexico's current president and the statements that she's made. She's come very clearly out at the beginning with policies that are much like her predecessor, AMLO, saying, basically it's hugs, not bullets, and that violence is not going to cure this. The stance between the two has always been, kind of like the Democrats on immigration. Let's go after the root causes, right? These folks are in cartels because of poverty and education. Let's improve those things, and it'll get better, and they'll stop doing this, which we know that's not to be the case. So this is a great thing. El Mencho was a very powerful person. There's a lot more work to be done, but it sends a message that this president can be manipulated to take action against the cartels. And we've heard quite clearly by the president that their days are numbered. So, when he speaks, usually action follows. And I think that's what we just saw yesterday.
So, Randy, talk to me about just the nature of Sheinbaum herself, because do you feel like, what is her connection to the cartels specifically? Because she seemed until this weekend, at a minimum, tolerant of Mexico basically operating as a failed narco state. And then all of a sudden this changed. Do you think she had a change of heart? Was she compelled by Donald Trump? Like, what do you think is happening here?
I think she was 100% compelled by Donald Trump. She shares a lot of similarities with the left in the United States. She's had some contact with educational institutions here. She's very pro-green energy. She's very anti-fossil fuels. And so she's going to have the mindset of somebody who sympathizes with the lawbreaker and probably doesn't believe that incarceration is going to change levels of crime. So I don't think she was really too upset about not taking a firm hand with these folks and just allowing them to act. But the cartels in general are extremely powerful in Mexico. As you know, they've got near 200,000 estimated members. If it was an employer, that would be about the 5th largest employer in all of Mexico. So their hands, to some extent or another, are in every single state to some extent or the other. And CJNG, they count with about 30,000 to 40,000 estimated members. And they're heavy into fentanyl, heavy into methamphetamine. They're a global organization that moves throughout 40 countries, it's estimated, including the Italian mob, to circulate drugs in Europe. They're very well known for importing precursors from China along the coast. They sit right below Sinaloa and Nayarit on the coast. So they're positioned well, and they have a lot of alliances, with the exception of probably just the former Zetas, the CDN. They've got some kind of alliances off and on with every major cartel in Mexico.
So how much does this help Mexico that he's gone? Or do you feel like there's just someone waiting in the wings to take his place, and perhaps they'll be able to use this as a recruiting tool? You always wonder about such things.
Well, I'll tell you from my experience, when I first got in the Border Patrol, anytime you said cartel, it was somebody in Colombia, right? So we saw these things in the Border Patrol and through our intelligence programs kind of grow and blossom, get destroyed. And at one point, we modeled targeting these leaders after what we did in Afghanistan and Iraq, where you could see in Iraq where we had the deck of cards soldiers were given to isolate and to capture or kill these leaders. So we employed the same strategy as the federal government for decades. What we were surprised to find out is take out the head of the snake and it reconstitutes in one way, shape, or form. If the organization doesn't survive, like the Tijuana cartel, like the Zetas, they'll rebrand, they'll rename, Some folks will run off and do other things, but generally speaking, the remnants of those criminal organizations are going to reconstitute, and they'll be back at it.
Yeah, I agree with that. So what is the next steps in order to try to forge some sort of a lasting peace to make some of this worth it?
Well, I think what we're seeing out of the cartel is a twofold kind of situation. You know, they're definitely angry and they're extremely worried. This is more worrisome for them than anything else because it's almost like the capture of Maduro. They just prove that secretly, which is what is most harmful to the cartels. They're in bed with generals, they're in bed with police officials, they're in bed with politicians. So it's hard to keep OPSEC, right? It's hard to keep things secret. They did this and they surprised this guy. So knowing that he wasn't able to get away, that puts the rest of his family, the other leaders, the leaders of other cartels in great peril, right? It's a bad message. So a lot of what they're doing right now is twofold, part retaliatory and part we're going to create so much chaos, you won't try and do this again. Another thing they may be worried about is what we saw in Colombia when they took out cartel leaders like Pablo Escobar. They never made it out alive, and we don't know the entire circumstances around the death of El Mencho.
Yeah, so would have been ideal if he was captured versus whether he was killed, because it seemed like the orders were to capture him, but again, it seems like him being dead is not so bad.
Well, the biggest frustration with American law enforcement when we were involved in Colombia was hardly anybody was taken alive, right? And that deprives the authorities of intelligence. But on the other hand, dead men tell no tales, right? So if this person, El Mencho, had a lot of information about potentially government corruption, you can only speculate that may be why he's not with us anymore. We don't know that, right? So that's something that we're going to learn perhaps. But that may be the fear that's striking the other cartels and the remnants of CJNG right now.
Yeah, really important. Okay, so how about the people of Mexico? Because it seems like there's a lot, and the people of America, because it seems like a lot of, including Puerto Vallarta, a lot of resort areas are shut down, and it feels like it's one of these things where there's going to be a lot of human casualty and stress and strife due to this. So is this perhaps a wake-up call for some of these entities? I mean, some of these hotels that operate in the area, that this is not a safe place? I mean, could there be any sort of coalition that forms to try to make sure this stuff doesn't happen again? Because as I reported earlier at the top of the show, that the cartel's reaction to this was to just start torching things and looting and burning things and trying to do actual terrorism.
Well, sadly, this is something that the poor people, the innocent people of Mexico have had to deal with for decades, right? They, too, watched this grow and the violence increase. And in any place in Mexico that's known for tourism, there's already high cartel activity, right? Because there's a lot of money coming into those places. And where there's money, you have the cartel. They're involved in gambling. They're involved in liquor sales, the taxi industry. And those coastal areas are also used to bring in precursors and what have you. So they have a heavy presence. And so they're used to the cartel getting angry from time to time, showing their violence, and then everything will calm down. We may be in different territory right now. The Mexican government has to do something quick, unless they're just going to let this play out. But it's starting to affect Americans, and that's not good for the cartels. It's not good for the Mexican government. Right now, there's about 18 states in which there's a shelter in place by the U.S. State Department. So it's not good. There's people that need to get back home. And that's really going to create a lot of chaos on both sides of the border.
But are there a lot of people in the Mexican government who wish it didn't happen, who would probably just content to see the cartels continue to operate the way they've been operating?
Well, I'm going to say absolutely. The cartel business is lucrative for everybody. We spoke about how big the industry is over there, and they're on the payroll, right? A lot of government officials, a lot of military officials, a lot of politicians. That's the source of some of their income. So, yeah, they would rather this have not happened and business as usual continued.
So credit to Trump. Sheinbaum obviously working on it, which is a positive. What do you think happens next year? Because it's pretty chaotic at the moment.
Well, I think it's all going to depend on what Donald Trump says is going to happen next. I think when you see that Claudia Sheinbaum was very quick to come out and say this was an intelligence operation. We know we've trained some of their military down there. We know we've used our surveillance unmanned aerial systems. So she's not hiding the fact that she's working closely with U.S. authorities. So really the path forward is going to depend, I think, on what the United States wants.
Very nice. That's Randy Clark. He is a longtime law enforcement official who is now part of Breitbart's Cartel Chronicles initiative. I think we do the absolute best reporting in the game on this. Thank you, Randy. We also had a huge scoop on how it was actually the U.S. Navy SEALs training the Mexican military to take out El Mencho. So big dub for Trump and good on Scheinbaum for getting it done. All right, guys. Lear Capital, you know how much I believe in buying precious metals, gold and silver, and I've found the best partners in the game for this. Precious metals are still a good buy. Many Wall Street experts are predicting higher prices ahead. Why? Because you've got trillions in debt, a declining dollar, and inflation that keeps shrinking our savings. Even with corrections along the way, gold is a historical hedge for wealth protection. That's why Morgan Stanley's chief investment officer ditched the 60-40 stocks and bonds portfolio and is recommending up to 20% in precious metals. They're getting educated, and you should too, and it's easy to. You just call Lear Capital, 800-992-2255 for a free gold investment kit, and you can learn how you can qualify for up to $20,000 in bonus gold. Who's offering that? Lear Capital is over $3 billion in transactions and thousands of five-star reviews. 800-992-2255. That's 800-992-2255 or visit LearAlex.com. If a red light therapy device is cheap, there's a reason, and it's not a good one. Most red light devices on the market are built to hit a low price point, not to deliver real results. They use weaker components, inconsistent light output, and non-medical grade standards. That's why so many of them feel underwhelming or stop working altogether. Flashy ads and big promises can't make up for poor performance. The Super Palm is medical grade, built for consistent, deep penetrating light that professionals trust. That means stronger results, better reliability, and real relief you can feel, not guesswork. It's also easy to use, handheld, and comfortable, making it simple to add to your daily routine as I have. I tried cheaper devices, made in China, and didn't feel anything. With the Super Palm, the pain in my knee and back finally eased after just a few weeks. It's the first one that actually worked. SunPower LED backs it with a money-back guarantee and a 2-year warranty, something most competitors just can't offer. And it's made in America. Use code MARLOW for 10% off today. Stop settling for low-quality devices and upgrade to real medical-grade relief. We got a fantastic team in the Marlow Show, and I'm grateful to all of them. Greg Eben is our executive producer. Sean McConnell runs the board. Roger Wicker Jr., Rick Locke, Garrett Chawley, Matt Zibble, Brandon Couples, Misty Callahan, John Cassio all make valuable contributions to the show. So much going on in the news. I'm heading out to D.C. I hope I make it because there's a lot of snow. There's so much snow that in New York City, they actually think you might need voter IDs, believe it or not. Here is Zohran Mamdani talking about the need to bring snow shovelers out for New York City. Let's play cut 9, please.
And for those who want to do more to help your neighbors and earn some extra cash, you too can become an emergency snow shoveler. Just show up at your local sanitation garage between 8 a.m. and 1 p.m. tomorrow with your paperwork, which is accessible online at nyc.gov/snow, and you can get started right away.
But one of the issues here is that you do need an ID to do this. So they don't think you should have an ID to vote because it's too racist, but you can get an ID to shovel snow for emergency snow. It just shows you these people are so vulnerable and they're so dumb, but there really is huge blizzard, 28 inches of what they're calling heart attack snow. That's kind of wild. That was not an expression I was familiar with, heart attack snow. But it's sort of thing where it's very dangerous to shovel snow, clear snow if you're not in decent shape. When it's important to be able to have keep yourself in shape, guys. It's worth it. You never know when you might need to draw on it. So much of the news is getting pushed out of the news cycle already. There apparently was another assassination attempt on President Trump, which you would think that would be the lead story in most of the time, but is noteworthy. I also flagged a story in The Atlantic from over the weekend. If you guys go to my X page on the Everything app, at Alex Marlow over there, where the Atlantic magazine continues to call Americans Nazis, conservative Americans, saying we're using a lot of Nazi symbolism. They want us killed, obviously. This has not slowed down at all since the multiple assassination attempts on President Trump since Charlie was assassinated. They won't stop. They want us dead because it's the only way they can beat us because their ideas are super stupid. Here's another revelation that, again, should get top billing, but has not gotten a lot of play as it should. Let's play cut 10, please. It's a Fox exclusive.
The relationship between the Biden White House and the Biden Justice Department. These two offices made it clear at the time, at least publicly, they were not connected and stayed away from any political interference. However, new emails obtained by Fox News from May 2022, 3 months before Mar-a-Lago was raided by the FBI, illustrates coordination between the White House counsel's office and the DOJ regarding an interview of Walt Nauta. This coming August, Brett, will mark 4 years since FBI agents raided Mar-a-Lago. A few days after that, then Attorney General Merrick Garland said this.
I personally approved the decision to seek a search warrant in this matter.
So we know that the Biden White House coordinated with the Department of Justice, his Department of Justice, on the FBI raid of Mar-a-Lago because it's logical that they would have done this. I wrote this in Breaking the Law, my New York Times bestselling book that I recommend to all of you. I wrote this specifically. There's no way on earth that the FBI would have raided a former president and current presidential frontrunner and go through his wife's underwear drawer looking for state secrets because of the national records for National Archives, NARA. There's no way they're going to do it for that. Of course, they coordinate with the White House, and until this weekend, we did not know that. It's a massive scandal. Heads should roll for this. Investigation should take place. We should be hauling people in to testify. It calls a lot into question. This is blatant weaponization of our government and our legal system against a presidential candidate. That's election rigging. It's deeply significant. And other than me pointing out, obviously this would have happened, we had no hard data to suggest it. And then now we do. Now all of a sudden we got the records. And recall that Merrick Garland didn't even take credit himself until days after. A lot of the suspicion was that Garland was either uncomfortable with the raid itself and was deciding between whether or not he should throw people under the bus or whether or not he should distance himself from it to some degree. He chose not to. He chose to eventually fall on the sword and say it was my doing. But I don't think it was Garland who was really behind it. I think it was the Biden White House. And I think it was people like Vanita Gupta and Lisa Monaco, who were running the Biden DOJ at the time under Garland, who were the more activist people. And I think they were doing this specifically to try to rig elections. We need to keep these names in the news because if we don't hold them accountable, then they are going to try to do it again. They're going to try to rig future elections. And they have to rig them because you see the type of candidates they put up. They put up candidates like Jasmine Crockett and the fake Christian James Tallarico and AOC and Gavin Newsom. They don't have people who've commanded the facts. Gretchen Whitmer, who doesn't even know where Ukraine is. So they can only win if they rig and they cheat. And so this is why we have to put our foot down and we have to stop them. Another one that got pushed off the news is the Epstein files. Peter Mandelson, who I've been bringing up on the show, we did a big deep dive on him on my podcast feed with Oliver Lane, a top labor leader who had coordinated to give Epstein allegedly state secrets during the financial crisis. A lot of bad guys out there. We're going to try and bring him to justice here on the show and in Breitbart News. That's all for today. I will see you guys from Washington, D.C. later in the week. Thanks for listening. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord.